Welcome to this module. So we've now come to a much awaited part of our course, that is writing our game's JavaScript code to make it playable, because right now this is what we have, a design which does nothing at all. Okay, so let's make our game work now. There are only 5 parts to our JavaScript code. Okay, it only has 5 parts. So there are only 5 parts to our JavaScript code, and we'll cover them one by one. And I'll be writing what each of these parts are in comments so that you know what I'm covering at that particular moment. Okay, so before I start, let me explain what comments are. So comments are lines that won't be read by the browser. So they're just simple lines that are used to comment on lines of code. They are used to explain things for other programmers who might read the code, or so that you can put in reminders so you know what your code is about when you look at it months later or something. So that's what comments are used for. They are lines that are not going to be read by the browser because they're only for the eyes of the programmer. Okay, so they're not for the browser. They won't be run by the browser. They don't produce any result, so they won't be displayed on your web page at all. So then what use are they? They're useful for the programmers, of course. Programmers write comments above their codes explaining what's happening on there. This way, when they or another programmer looks at the code at a later date, they know why the code was written the way it was. So it avoids confusion. That's why comments are used. In JavaScript, you can write comments in 2 ways. The first one is single line comment, like this one that I just wrote. So you type in 2 front slashes and then you write your comment like this. As you can see, the color of these comments are completely different. They're a grayish color, right? They're a grayish color that does not reflect the normal black color in here. So that's to indicate that it won't be run by the browser. And then there's also multi-line comments, which are written like this: front slash, then a star, and then another star, and a front slash again. And within this you can write your comment lines. Okay, so you can multiple lines. You can write multiple lines of comment in here within these 2 symbols. Okay, now that you know what comments are, let's go for our code as such. So let's go for the first step of our code. So the initial states, we'll be assigning the initial states in the first part of our code. So here you'll be declaring and in some cases initializing the variables we'll be using to create this game. Also, we'll be initializing the arrays that hold the state of each box, as in if a box is filled and what shape is inside each of the box. Okay, so the entire JavaScript code, and before we start that, let's go for the window function. So the entire JavaScript code of the game is going to be within an anonymous function that's written like this: a window function, window onload is equal to function. So this is called an anonymous function, and these things, just forget these things because these are just a bracket thing for a script. It's a new addition, I think. It doesn't mean that there's a problem. There's no problem at all. All of our lines of code are going to be perfectly working. It's just a warning symbol. Okay, so don't worry about that. So this function basically, this particular window function basically lets the browser know that the JavaScript codes within the function should be executed after the window loads, as in after the HTML and the CSS parts of the code loads. So this says window after the window onload, that is after the window has loaded, execute this function. Anonymous function basically means that the function has no name. Okay, so this function has no name, right? Because we are assigning this to window onload. So that's why we don't need a name, because we don't have to call it as such, because it's written after an equal to, so it's automatically assigned in here. So function, and then we have all of our function in here, and at the end we have to give a semicolon because this is actually a line of code, not just a function. So that's it for this lesson. In the next lesson, let's start looking at our initial states. So I'll see you there. Thank you.